And Merry Christmas to everybody. I've had a good year in 2019 despite some ups and downs, but it's been a good year despite that, and I hope it's been a great year for all of you as well. It's Christmas time, and we hear the carols, and we hear a lot about the message of Christmas, but one of the things I find interesting about the message of Christmas is that it's not a call to return to the Garden of Eden, where everyone is safe and nature is kind. It's more like a call to bring light into a bleak world.
Last year I thought about how things can come around just like that.
Same size.
Everyone is here.
Yeah, a little bit better.
Celebrate one day.
They're kind of skinnier. It's almost like they're skinnier. Boy, he's skinny.
Yeah, very
Look
skinny.
at that. So that is the mega nature shad. But they are not responding to that bait right now. I think they just don't. The size of the fish, or this is a nice bigger fish there. So I need to switch back to the 3 inch. Same color, ultraviolet nature shad. The original. We both have 3/8 ounce lead heads.
There we go.
Yeah. Fish.
Nice trout.
I think that one's a little bit bigger. Whether you believe in the actual events of the story or just believe that the Christmas story is fiction, it's such an unlikely story to have survived. You have a baby born in a barn. He says some stuff that the elites don't like when he grows up, and they kill him. And I'm sure they thought, oh, that's the last time we're going to hear from that troublemaker. Nobody like 2,000 years from now is even going to know that he existed. Well, the guy had a way of coming back. It reminds me of the analyst that I heard who was talking about how YouTube is the most terrible idea for a business. It has no chance of becoming an actual business. And this was in like 2006. And just a few months later, Google bought them for about $1.5 billion. So that guy had no idea that 10 years later, adults would spend like 1 million hours a year watching amateur videos of other people fishing.
15 inches. That thing is.
Okay.
That thing is sensitive. I think you just convinced me.
I like that smaller size bait. I really do.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know, conditions, the bait that's down there,
Yeah.
whatever. Last week I talked about the passion I have for the tap. That tap on the line when I'm jigging in deep water. It's the signal that I've made contact with the minions of nature. And based on the comments I received, there's a lot of you who have the same passion. So I figure if there's a lot of us that are feeling the same way, then it's a thing. And if I was going to try to describe this thing so we can talk about it, I would probably say it's something like intellect in fair competition with the forces of nature. Because I mean, what is a fish? It's just a very sophisticated extension of nature. And with intellect, I can catch that fish, I can trick it, I can choose to eat it, or I could just choose to release it unharmed back into the water. Either way, that's all the benefit of having intellect.
Go ahead and shake that head.
Good one there?
This one's got a little bit less up out. No, maybe a 14. That's a nice tug on it.
Big.
All right. There we go.
We're doubled up.
Yep.
Same kind of size.
See, I don't know.
That one was pretty far down. Pretty.
On bottom. Yeah. Crispy.
So as I continue to talk about the deep water fishing, this day is an example of having all the conditions right. It's around 56 degree water temperature, and we've got tide coming through the dam here. Pretty strong tide, actually. The trout are anywhere from probably 15 to 25 feet, and they are very active. There's a lot of them here.
White? Yeah,
White
little
trout. But that's the criticalness of the deep water fishing, that the conditions are right. They just won't be here if the water, for instance, is too warm or too cold. You should have some moving water, but that goes for all trout fishing, not just deep water. But when you got the conditions right, deep water fishing is very rewarding because it's a little bit more difficult, and it's all about the feel of the bite, and it's not the visual fishing like you would do with a cork. Although there is a visual aspect if you're watching your line. Especially if you're using a high visibility line, you can watch it, see a strike, and then respawn. So it's a great activity. We love this deep water fishing. It's a great way to spend a cold winter day like today.
Oh, God. No, he's still on.
Still on there.
Swimming all over.
Interestingly, in the Christmas story, it's the shepherds who first get the message about the birth of Jesus. And from what I can tell, the shepherds were basically the outdoorsmen of their era. I mean, these were the guys that lived outside 24/7. They were defending sheep against wolves and bears with sticks and stones. You know how when you go to bear country camping, you always want to isolate your food from you? Like, you want to make sure that your sleeping self and your food are not in close proximity, like in your tent. Well, I heard that the word shepherd is the Aramaic translation for man who sleeps with his food. These dudes were tough, man. They were real outdoorsmen. And they're the ones that the angels went to first to tell the good news. And years later, when Jesus wanted to start his movement, who did he recruit first? Fishermen. You got to be kidding me. It was the outdoorsmen who were largely responsible for transmitting the message that transformed the Roman Empire and later created Western civilization. Was it because the message was about humans transcending nature and that these outdoorsmen, they just instinctively understood this message because every day they were in struggle against the very lies with the forces of nature. It was just their intellect that saved them. Well, I really have no idea about that, but I am passionate about the tap. What I'm seeing with these trout, now they're not the biggest trout. They're like the probably 13 to 14 size, but compared to the last time I was out here, I'm having to keep the line, more tension on the line, because they're not hanging onto the bait. They hit it and drop, hit it and drop. And if I don't keep a little bit of tension, then I'm just not getting the hook set. I'm having to be much more careful when I'm fishing to try to get that hook set. So it's just different today than other days. Bigger. Yeah.
Nice.
So just checking the salinity here on the south side of the dam, Ergo Dam, and we're at about 10 ppt, so which is pretty high. And there's a lot of trout here, although we've been catching a few little white trout lately. So that 10 ppt will help to bring in more numbers of trout, because they can follow that. They don't have to work quite as hard to make adjustments for the water properties, the salinity in the water. We're gonna leave the area right next to the dam. The bite has really slowed down. It was fairly short in first thing in the morning. That's what I've seen the last few days. It's not supposed to work like that in the wintertime. But it sure is right now, because this is early winter. And but the bite's been in the morning, just like you see earlier in warmer weather. So it was hot and heavy for an hour and a half, and then dwindled down. Mostly now we're seeing some white trout and a few trout here and there, but not very active. We're gonna go check out some other spots.
There we go.
Fish on.
All right, Corky.
I got a fish. Corky, man.
And I'm hung.
Look at that.
Yeah, all right. I like that.
Not a
Little
huge
variety.
one. There we go. Kind of a surprise, it's not a big fish. I was really hoping to catch a larger fish by fishing this Corky, but so this was another good day of winter fishing. Deep water, most of the fish coming out of 15 to 20 feet. Although we did wrap up the day fishing along this shoreline, this rock shoreline, which is more like, it'd be probably 3 feet at the rocks, and then we were fishing out to maybe 9 feet. And we caught a few there. There was a little bit of activity. Even caught one on a Corky and a jerkbait. So that's always fun. But hey, don't give up on the winter. It's a good time to trout fish. Hey, give it a thumbs up if you like this video, and hit the subscribe button.